Well, time to really talk about the Super B now that No Name Nationals is in the rearview mirror, and it's time to really talk about what happened at the event and what happened leading up to the event and how we got this car there, because this was supposed to kind of be a surprise. It was a surprise to a lot of people, but it's time to kind of let you guys know a little bit of the pain and suffering that went into making this whole thing happen. So, for those of you that don't know, this is our 1969 Super B. Originally a 383 automatic car. It is not that anymore. Still an automatic, but it was B5 blue interior, 391 gear, 26-inch radiator, Ram Charger hood, dual scoop hood car. So that's some of the options. It's got probably more than that, but that's just a few off the top of my head. And this car is in great shape. It always has been. And I decided a while ago, quite a while ago, a couple years ago, that this 440, I wanted to put in this car. And quick overview on this engine. This is a 40 over 440. 6-pack rods, 6-pack pistons, steel crank. It's been balanced neutrally, so it's had a little bit of weight and balancing done on the bottom end. 906 iron heads, but they've been ported beyond anything else I've ever seen out of an iron head. They're 214, 181 valves, big valves. The heads are on the intake side are ported out very close to max wedge size. And there's been a ton of bowl work done, ton of porting work done. I do have videos on this engine, and there's been a lot going on with it. I dyno tested it. It made 500 horsepower, 550 torque. It has a 540 lift solid flat tappet Crower cam. It has a YN 7512 accelerator intake single plane, and currently a 800 AVS2 Edelbrock carburetor, and it has 1 7/8" headers going into 3 or 3.5 collectors, I don't remember. So this engine is plenty healthy, and it'll be getting upgrades beyond what it is currently. The biggest restrictors right now is the carburetor is too small and not functioning properly, and the intake is too small, because the intake is stock port, and as I mentioned before, the heads are very close to max wedge size port. So there's a bit of a port mismatch there that will be solved in the near future, hopefully. So I've got other intakes that are the same kind that I can port match, or there's also the idea being thrown around of a 6-pack for this car. So we'll kind of weigh our options. Let me know what you guys would do in the comments. Would you port match a single 4-barrel, or would you like to see a 6-pack on this car? Let me know what you think in the comments. But yeah, when we started on this car, we put the engine and transmission in it, and that was it. We had a bunch of other stuff going on. That was 2 years ago, and it's kind of sad ever since. I put 391 gears in it, and that was it. It never did anything else beyond that. It never ran with the engine in it. It never moved with the engine in it. It never did anything. So I started less than 40 days ago. I decided, all right, well, let's make this thing happen, and let's make it happen in time for No Name Nationals. And this car had things bolted to it, but nothing was tight, nothing was secured, nothing was fitted. The fenders were on. They had like 1 or 2 bolts each. The doors weren't even tight on there. The front suspension is completely redone. I wish I would have videotaped that, because that would have been really cool to show people. But it had no bumpers on it. It had no headlights. It had no taillights. It had no wiring. It had no hood hinges. It had no hood. It had no windshield. It had no dash. It didn't even have a dash in it. It had no seats, no console, no linkage, no shifter, no anything. I restored this dash myself. It's been a lot of work. But let's talk about the suspension quick, because like I said, I wish I would have recorded some of the crap we went through on that. When we really dug into this suspension, it needed a lot. So we replaced the inner and outer tie rod ends, the tie rod end sleeve adjusters, the upper control arms with upper ball joints, lower ball joints, and redid the backing plates, redid brakes, wheel cylinders, brake shoes all the way around, everything. And it has a new master cylinder in it as well. We did the whole everything, but we left the lower control arms alone because we thought, okay, well, they look good and we don't really have time to get into that, so we'll do it at a later date. Well, that was a mistake because we got it all set down and this wheel was tipped in pretty significantly even after we had the adjusters turned all the way out. So we were thinking, well, what the heck is going on here? So we pulled it back apart, thought, okay, well, lower control arm bushings, that's a common issue, maybe that's the issue. And it was not. The lower control arm bushings were okay, but we decided to replace them anyways. But when we took the lower control arm out on the driver's side here, there's a pin that goes through the K-member that there's a bolt on the front side, and there's a sleeve that it sits in the K-member and pivots. Well, when we took it out, it took the K-member with it. The sleeve that goes in the K-member that holds that pin in place, that's welded in, the welds broke. And it came out with it. So, and this had happened, I don't know, 30 years ago, whenever the car was last driven, because the whole backside of the K-member was all wallered out and destroyed. So we, at the last minute, had to completely swap a K-member. So that was a fun process. If you've never swapped a K-member with an engine still in place floating on a cherry picker, that's a pretty interesting feeling. Again, I wish it was something I would have recorded, but this was supposed to kind of be a surprise, and if I would have recorded everything, it would have taken much longer and I probably wouldn't have gotten as much done. But I digress. Here we are anyways. So this has a new K-member in it. Not brand new, it's an original style, but a nice, fresh, repainted, shiny black K-member. And in that process, we changed to manual steering to reduce weight, have one less belt driven on the engine, and just it's a lot better for header clearance, and we don't really need manual steering on an automatic car. On a manual car, it's kind of nice to be able to just easy steer everything, especially when you're having to shift. But on an automatic car, I don't think it's really necessary. But anyways, that's just a personal preference. But this car has been through so much, and I'm proud of where it is, and I'm proud of what I got done in the time I got done. But there's a little hint of disappointment just because of the few issues that we ran into at No Name Nationals that prevented it from living up to even it didn't live up to even a portion of its potential. So I don't know, but this entire car has been put together in the last 30 days. It had no bumper, it had no taillights, it had nothing, you know. So it's been a long process. I'm happy to see where we are, but let's kind of shift gears and talk about what happened. So we got to No Name Nationals, and we had a bunch of things going on. Our truck, by the time we got there, that pulled this thing there, had decided that the lifters are going to eat the cam. So that was a real fun process, and that cost $1,100 to frickin' have that truck towed back home. So that was a process. And then we had to have a friend drive down one of our other trucks to pick up the car and the trailer. So it was a long, stressful weekend in that regards, but it sure was a lot of fun hanging out with a lot of great people there. But as far as what happened with the car, I changed spark plugs in it when we were there because it wasn't running good. It sounded like the plugs were fouled or something wasn't right. And I replaced the plugs, got running a little better. It was running really good, at least I thought. And I went out to make my first and only pass. So backed up, got in the water box, first time ever down the track. Did a very weak burnout, so that was embarrassing, but again, like I say, first time down the track, I got a lot to learn yet. And it took off the line incredible. The suspension worked amazing. It picked the front end up a little bit. Obviously didn't do a wheelie or anything, but it lifted the front end. The weight transfer was great on the car. It didn't spin even a little bit. I got out and I was just trying to make a pass that I could get used to the track. I wasn't trying to go all out or anything, but I got out, got about 3,000 RPM, shifted into second, and it started popping. It started popping really bad. And it was terrible, and it was lean popping and kind of detonating, and I was like, okay, well, I'm out. And I let off immediately and just drove down the track and hit the lights at 32 miles an hour. So that was a real high quality run. I think some of the monkey bikes even went faster than that. So pretty upsetting and disappointing, but it is what it is. So I attribute that to one of two things, either the carburetor or the fuel pump. So I've gone through and diagnosed a bunch of different fuel pump related things. I really don't think it's the fuel pump, because this is the pump off the car. And I tested it just by hand, pressing the lever down. It sure does seem to have quite a bit of suction. So we'll see what the deal is with that. But I decided to change to a Carter rebuildable style pump. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. So that's supposed to put out a little more fuel, a little more pressure, and it's supposed to be overall just better. Well, the car's been sitting after idling a little bit with that pump, and that's how much gas is in the filter. It seems a little low to me, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to reconfigure my lines a little bit, and I'm going to put my Holley 830 on here. I have a fuel line for my Holley 830 that has a pressure gauge right on the line. So I'm going to put that on in the next few days. You guys will see a video on that hopefully, and I will find out once and for all, do I have a fuel pressure issue or was it simply a carburetor issue? So that being said, that's where we're at, that's what we're working on, and I just want to get this thing figured out a little bit better before it gets into winter, because if you don't know, I'm in Minnesota, and in the winter we don't get to drive our cars. So hopefully I can get this figured out, ideally within a week, so I can get at least a couple weeks of driving out of it. And I need to do something about the header situation, because I don't think they necessarily bother me too much around here, but running around with open headers on a 440 with a big cam is not exactly something that they'd probably be super happy about. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I'm going to deal with the carburetor swap and fuel line, and I'm going to relocate the filter and do a couple little things to hopefully make sure we're getting enough fuel to the engine. And if we're still having lean issues after that, I'm not sure. We'll have to do some carburetor tuning, or if I'm not getting enough pressure, that would obviously contribute to the lean factor. So we will diagnose that within the next couple of days, so we can hopefully get this thing in use. And I'm gonna have to order some parts to deal with the open header situation, because I'll tell you, it sounds cool, sounds like, you know, a race car, but it's not. And it needs to go into a little bit more street car trim, if you guys understand what I mean. So hopefully a few of you guys from No Name Nationals saw the car and could at least hear it run. I definitely drove it around the pits plenty of times, but you get into the higher RPM and it's lean popping and there's issues. So there's a lot yet to fix, there's a lot yet to figure out, but it's been a long road to get here and we're not done yet. So I appreciate everybody that helped me out at No Name Nationals and everybody that was hanging out and being very accommodating to me and my dad. We were having a lot of issues again, you know, with the whole truck situation. It wasn't a good deal and we were kind of stranded, so special thanks to people that helped us get around and get a ride to and from places. You know, Chris Testa and Mark and the NSB guys, Lee and Dean, especially those guys. It was awesome hanging out with them, and they definitely helped us get around, get to and from our hotel, because we obviously don't want to drive a truck that the cam is eating the lifter, because that's just gonna make everything worse. So definitely had a lot of fun. Can't wait for next year. Thanks to John Wilburn and everybody for putting it on, and I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one, and I'll see you guys at the next No Name Nationals.